EU and Russian relations have been quite a lot about EU and energy relations have been one of the cornerstones of EU and Russian relations throughout the last decade or probably 15-20 years. Although any major problems have not been observed, and where there have been problems, then these have been smoothed out via political dialogue of one or another sort. So pressure from one side, pressure from another side, and things have been solved. This does not necessarily mean, though, that things have been going smoothly, and they might be continuing smoothly. There is a variety of issues that are on the table and also under the table, and strategic interests of one side and the other side, constantly changing and developing, even more so in a more global context of international relations and especially energy relations. Some of the work for me has been made easier by some of the previous speakers who have touched upon some of the problems related to EU-Russia energy relations, but I will allow myself to share a few points, though. Of course, when we look at any international relations today, it's almost inevitable that energy will pop up at one or another point. Whether directly or indirectly, energy relations, energy supplies, access to transit routes, access to energy resources are always somewhere on the horizon, if not present, quite bluntly. Energy relations quite clearly provide context for international relations, and EU and Russian relations is a perfect example of this. Luckily, this relation between these two big players, Russia and the EU, are well, of mutual benefit and mutual dependency, which is not a military type. It is of energy type, and well, the consumers need, of course, something to consume, and the suppliers and producers need to sell their product. This is true for any goods, but even more so for energy. Well, one issue which has always been on the table between the EU countries and the Russian Federation is the issue of multilateral versus bilateral relations. Definitely, both the EU and the Russian Federation have the regional priorities and regional and specific vectors of interest, both politically and economically. And well, the developments in relations often center around these specific regional interests. If we take a look at the current situation, then it is quite clear that the area close to the Russian border and neighboring countries is, of course, one of the one where Russia has definite certain strategic interests. Of course, it also at the same time has interests in getting bigger economic influence in the EU market, and this can be this can very well be done by concluding contracts with about supply of energy resources to EU countries. The thing is that the preference from the EU side has been, well, let's try to be multilateral in our relations. The EU should speak in one voice with the Russian Federation when it comes to energy negotiations. On the other hand, Russia has been quite explicitly preferential for bilateral relations, and this is no surprise. I think it makes sense from the point of view of exercising both foreign economic and policy from the side of the Russian Federation, as well as generally political relations with the EU as a as an organization, as a union of states, and with at the same time with separate EU countries which are still strategic partners for the Russian Federation. For example, Germany, which is one of the biggest consumers of Russian natural energy resources and natural resources as such as well. Although energy, of course, dominates, there is a variety of other issues which come into play when we speak about EU and Russian relations, and which somehow mitigate the sharp edges which occur from time to time, and those are, of course, the realms, such realms as transport, education, science, culture, and investment. At some point, all of these intertwine, and they become interdependent on each other. So there are many things to do and to sort out to make this interaction between these various realms smooth. It is no secret that success or failure in one of these areas might have influence on other realms. When it comes to energy, then I would point out that the following factors are important and have always been important in EU-Russia relations. So it's, of course, the energy infrastructure. There is energy infrastructure which is in place, and some of it has been presented here on the PowerPoint slides by previous speakers. I'm not going to repeat that. Definitely, if we take a look at the Baltic, the region of the three Baltic states, then the energy supply infrastructure, it is one of the issues which is definitely on the table in the domestic politics. If we look at one of the main energy resources that we consume here, for example, in Latvia, which is natural gas, then it is quite clear that one supply source, one supply route, one storage facility, one key market player legally and de facto doesn't leave much space for market and does not allow for much of negotiation when it comes to negotiating prices. So the second factor is legal basis for cooperation, definitely. Presence or lack of market conditions for cooperation and for trade in energy resources is another issue which has more question marks than answers. Common rules, and what kind of rules are we going to stick to? Is it going to be something which stems from the third energy package of the EU, or is it going to be some kind of special settlement of cooperation rules between, for example, Latvia and Lithuania and the Russian Federation when it comes to supplies of natural gas? And of course, political context is important always. The only question is which factor influences the other factor. Political context probably influences the energy relations, and I would say vice versa is absolutely true as well. Given the difficult legal basis and difficult political context, or not difficult, rather complicated political contexts in energy relations with Russia, then just one example is price negotiations for natural gas. Politicians from the Baltic states have been saying, well, we're going to meet Gazprom chiefs and talk about natural gas prices for the next few years. Maybe we can get better prices, and different local contexts come into play. On the other hand, it is quite clear that if there is no market and if there is no possibility to exercise any leverage on the partner in negotiation, then it is quite difficult and interesting to speak about trying to achieve better prices for energy supplies. There is no ability to exercise any significant influence. To sum up, there are still a number of challenging issues in EU-Russian energy relations, and these issues concern the EU as a union of states and also separate member states, some of them more than others, though. One issue is that despite the post-Fukushima nuclear power, despite the plunge in post-Fukushima nuclear excitement, there's still competing nuclear power interests in the Baltic region. It is, to name the Kaliningrad NPP plan. There's another plan in Belarus, supported also by the Russian Federation, to erect a new nuclear power plant, and Lithuanians have not given up the intentions to proceed with Visagina nuclear power plant as well. So I personally do not see how all of these three projects can coexist if there is no need for such an amount of energy, electricity-wise, of course, in this region, which does not consume so much energy. Another issue is situation of exclusive rights of operation of suppliers of strategic energy resources, which is one of the most difficult issues when it comes to negotiations, energy negotiations between the Russian Federation and the EU, and also between the Russian Federation and specific member states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, to name a few. What stems from this difficulty is the issue of third-party access to pipelines and storage of natural gas. It's also limited or no market due to specific legal conditions of operation of the main supplier, main and the only supplier of natural gas. It's also there's also no incentive for competing investment in the region as well, which is quite an issue locally. And finally, of course, this is the problem of unipolar price tagging with no possibility, was quite unbalanced possibility to influence price negotiations by one of the involved sides. Bilateralism as opposed to multilateralism was already mentioned here. It makes sense from both sides to continue as they have been continuing and practicing so far. The EU has emphasized its willingness to have a common position vis-à-vis the Russian Federation and also other suppliers of natural resources, not only Russia. On the other hand, it is quite clear that bilateral relations will prevail in the near future, at least, since will prevail in energy negotiations with the Russian Federation and Russia. It makes sense for the Russian Federation to keep proceeding as it has so far. Simply, well, one argument being that this has been quite productive so far, and second of all, it also helps develop its strategic interests in the EU and in some of the regional markets. But, well, there still remain many more question marks than answers, and I think this forum will probably cast some light on some of the issues and help to understand which way the processes might develop in the near future. Thank you.